I'm talking to you today about self-care, and I'm going to set up a problem. This is not a real situation. This is a very this situation. Well, before I do that, let me say my name is Kimberly Hackett. I'm a parent coach, and I'm the founder and creator of Parenting You, which believes parenting is about the parent. Parenting You sees parenting challenges as a unique opportunity for personal growth, healing, and repair. For you to change what's not working is for you to move into leadership. And that's what I help parents do. So today I'm talking about self-care, parent self-care, and what it is and how to begin to practice it. Before we do that, I'm going to give you a quick little vignette. This vignette is not real, but it's very real to many parents. So Michael is 13 and he loves video games and he plays every chance he gets. Mary, his mom, has managed to keep some controls on his screen time, but suddenly he's fighting back. Mary wants Michael to do his homework, but first, but Michael wants to come home and relax for a few hours, playing his game with his friends, and then do his homework after dinner. Mary just tried really hard to let Michael do it that way, but it's never worked out. And it always ends up with lots of fights and stress. And Michael ends up not doing his homework properly because he's tired. And his grades now are falling. And Mary is really upset and she's confused. She doesn't really know how to handle this. And to top everything off, Mary and Michael's relationship is getting more distant. And Mary is super concerned that all Michael cares about in life is Grand Theft Auto. Do you have that situation or a variation of that theme at your house? So screens are a big deal. So what does screens have to do with self-care? So, well, everything, because Mary is upset and confused and worried, and the conflict with her son is getting worse, not better. So something has to change. So self-care, what is it? When I say self-care, what comes to mind? Do you think about going out to dinner with your friends, joining a yoga studio, writing in your journal with a hot cup of coffee, after your kids have gone to school? I hope you're doing all these things. I really do, to take care of yourself. But the self-care I'm talking about is how you talk to yourself, that inner dialogue that you have when you're triggered, when you feel reactive. So because Mary is confused and upset and worried, she has a lot of reactivity in her, right? So what self-care is how does Mary talk to or with those feelings? There is the kind of self-care we all do when we take care of our body and our mind, which is essential for well-being and emotional and physical health. But the self-care I'm talking about is really sort of recognizing that we all talk to ourselves. We have, like right now, I'm thinking about, literally I've got 3 voices in my head this very moment, right? So there's this voice of saying, okay, blah, blah, this other voice saying, okay, that, I'm just thinking, we have multiplicity of mind. We have many, many minds. We're constantly talking to ourselves, unconsciously, often unconsciously. And we also don't sort of think of it as voices. We just think of it as our mind just doing the mind thing, just lots of thoughts and feelings and conversations going on. And we don't really surface those conversations and sort of pinpoint actually who's talking and what are they actually saying and what's actually going on inside here. So the kind of self-care I'm talking about is that inner conversation. It's becoming super aware of the inner conversation. So another way of looking at it is every experience that you have, every year of your life, every moment of your life is stored inside your mind, right? So you have the 2-year-old mind, you have the 8-year-old mind, you have the 16-year-old mind, and you have all the experiences of those stages of your life. So you have the mind, so the 16-year-old mind, the 2-year-old mind can't be a 16-year-old mind, right? But the 16-year-old mind can be an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old mind. My 50-plus-year-old mind holds all the minds of my life, right? I can get triggered and act like an 8-year-old, right? But you can only be where you are. You collect your experiences. They're stored inside of you, and all those minds are also inside of you. So when I talk about self-care, I'm talking about the quality of your inner conversations, those minds talking to each other. And I'm not going to get complicated about it. I'm going to be super simple, right? And we're going to, because even though we have many minds talking at once, we're just going to talk about the adult mind talking to the triggered part of you, which is a younger part of you, right? So the adult mind is talking to the 10-year-old, let's say, for example. So there's two voices in our head. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about self-care. When your body and mind don't feel well, you do something. You might go to a doctor, you start exercising, you drink more water, you eat more vegetables. New Year's resolutions are famous for being super focused on, this is the time I'm going to start to improve the quality and consistency of how well I take care of my mind and body, right? So we make these New Year's resolutions. But we don't really think about how to take care of our inner self, our inner mind, all these different parts of us. Now I see them as parts of us are like inner children. So I have a 16-year-old, I have an 8-year-old, I have a 2-year-old. They live inside me, and they get triggered and they act out, right? So how well do I want to have how well am I taking care of myself means how well am I loving? How well am I loving and soothing those parts of me that get triggered? So, for example, you might pick up meditation. You might do meditation, which is a superior way of dealing with stress and pain. And meditation is about letting go of your thoughts. It's about emptying your mind, sort of letting things just sort of float by and not attaching yourself to anything, right? Not attaching yourself to a thought, right? You can, well, self-care that I'm talking about in this particular work, in the Parenting You work, is actually not letting go of those feelings, moving towards them. So self-care is the practice of having a loving conversation with a triggered feeling. You want to move towards the feeling. You want to get to know the feeling. And if you see the feeling as a part of you, as an experience inside of you, as a younger version of yourself, then it's much easier to have a loving conversation with a being than it is to have it with this charge, this energy. So self-care is soothing. It's soothing and relaxing and validating the triggered feeling, the triggered part. So Mary is triggered by Michael and Michael's choices, Michael's refusal to listen, Michael's refusal to, invest in homework and have some sort of restrictions on self-control around screens. So she's really triggered. She's worried. She's confused. And I think she's a little scared, right? So those are parts of her that live inside of her, right? Those are real. It's real. So to ignore that, right, to ignore those feelings actually creates more problems, because what ends up happening is when we ignore feelings or don't have a relationship with feelings, we end up letting the feeling take over, right? And it does the parenting for us. It does the talking for us. So that's a problem. we do not want to parent from reactivity. So the one thing you want to do is you want to start to gently notice that you're triggered. You move into self-care by first noticing that, oh, I'm triggered. This is a feeling inside of me that I don't like. It's uncomfortable. I don't really know where it's coming from. I don't really understand it, but it's bothering me. So you notice that, okay? And then you move into self-care by having a conversation with it, like, I'm loving it. It's okay. So what would you say to your 10-year-old child if he was really upset? You would say, go away, go someplace else and come back when you're feeling nicer. You would say something like, it's okay to be upset. It's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be confused. And you would allow that your child to feel those feelings. So I think I've made my point about the beginning of the practice is really about how you talk to yourself when you're triggered, right? And the idea is to see the trigger as a child that needs a loving attention from the adult. And there's two people in the system in this particular configuration. There's the adult you who can handle anything. And then there's the child in you who's worked up, right? So we want the adult you who can handle anything to have a loving conversation with the child in you that's triggered, that's worked up. That's the practice. That's as simple as that. I'm just checking. Okay. So high percentage of reactivity comes from young parts of us who are scared, overwhelmed, sad, angry, and need loving attention. Those young parts of us are not going to get loving attention from our children, from our partners, or from our parents, right? That's not going to happen. So the way we're going to get loving attention, we're going to get loving attention from ourselves. So that's where we're going to get what we need. What we didn't get before, and we still need now, needs to come from the adult in us. Okay, so Mary, just to go back to Mary. Mary is confused and she doesn't know how to handle the screen issue with Michael. So the way to think about it is a part of Mary is confused, right? And when that confusion starts to do, and if she doesn't recognize that she's confused or angry or sad, and she lets that confusion do the thinking and talking and doing for her, then what ends up happening? When you parent from reactivity, your child will always react to you, always, 100%. So it doesn't serve Mary to not be in relationship with the confusion. She actually needs to have a relationship with the feeling so she can calm this feeling down. So then that creates space. And then she has choices in terms of how she wants to deal with this issue with Michael. So that can take a minute, right? That can take longer. It's a practice. So the more you do this, the more more quickly you are able to make that U-turn and then circle back to your child. So the U-turn is, okay, I got to take care of myself here. I'm triggered. I cannot parent from reactivity. So I got to spend a little time here and do this self-soothing, loving conversation with myself and relax the trigger part. And once that relaxes, right? Now that's where you can have more authentic calm, by the way. So when that part relaxes, then the adult, not the triggered part, the adult goes back and has a conversation with your child about the issue. It's going to be a completely different conversation. And Michael's going to have a completely different response because you're not coming back all worked up still. Because the minute you come back worked up, Michael's going to react to your reactivity, Mary's reactivity. But if you take care of yourself and calm yourself down in a loving, validating, soothing way, right? And then young part sort of moves over, the adult can say, okay, let's get back in there. Let's get back there and do the job of parenting. Mary cannot be an effective parent until she takes care of herself. Okay, so that's why that's what parenting is all about. It's about taking care of yourself, taking care of your inner self, taking care of all the parts of you, getting to know them, have a relationship with them, so they're not taking over and doing the parenting for you. All right, so a couple more things. I think I've made my point. And this is a really, really important practice. And really, it's sort of like, I know it's really about noticing you're triggered, right? You've got to notice you're triggered first. So I call it gentle noticing. Like really starting to notice when you're triggered. And then don't parent when you're triggered. Just don't make a commitment to yourself. Or if I'm in the middle of parenting my child and I get triggered, I'm going to say, time out, I'm triggered. I'm going to be totally transparent about it and say, I'm triggered. I can't have a conversation with you anymore. Go away, self-soothe, calm the triggered part down, but always circle back. For Mary and Michael, I would recommend she begin the practice of having a loving conversation with the triggered parts. And what's escalating the screen use, what's creating the problem for Mary is that her trigger parts are doing the parenting work. And she needs to spend more time with her feelings, getting to know them, feel them, soothe them. And she needs to go back and be a parent in leadership, which is being aware that parts of you are triggered, but you're not letting them take over. Taking responsibility for what's actually going on internally and not letting those trigger feelings take over. That's it. I would my call to action. I would love it if you are interested in this work. You can and you are want to get a free guide to how to run a no conflict family meeting. You should go to my website KimberlyHackett.com, and then also consider joining my private Facebook group. And you go into Facebook groups and type in my name, Kimberly Hackett. So that's it for today. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Self-love and self-care. It's everything. It's good stuff. Thank you, Justina. Okay, I'm gonna. Does anybody have a question before I go? Okay. Thanks so much for being the kind of parent who is working hard to show up for your child and for yourself and for all the parts of you that live inside of you. That is everything. That's all you need to do. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to be in touch. And thanks for showing up today. Bye-bye.